English Literature, Introduction to Poetry, Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. Brief questions with answers. Question 1. When was Thomas Gray born? Answer. Thomas Gray was born 26 December 1716. Question 2. Where was Thomas Gray born? Answer. Thomas Gray was born in London. Question 3. Where did Thomas Gray have his education between 1725 and 1734? Answer. Thomas Gray had his education in 1725 to 1734 at Eton College. Question 4. What subject did Thomas Gray dislike? Answer. Thomas Gray disliked mathematics. Question 5. Who was with Thomas Gray during his European tour of 1739 to 1741 and quarreled and separated in Italy? Answer. Horace Walpole was with Thomas Gray during his European tour of 1739 to 1741. They quarreled and separated in Italy. Question 6. When did Thomas Gray die? Thomas Gray died on 30 July 1777. Question 7. What caused Thomas Gray's death? Answer. Gout caused Thomas Gray's death. Question 8. When was Elegy written in a country churchyard published? Answer. Elegy written in a country churchyard was published in 1775. Question 9. What type of poem is Elegy written in a country churchyard? Answer. The poem is an elegy. Question 10. What is an elegy? Answer. An elegy is a poem of mourning. Question 11. Where is Gray's elegy set? Answer. The poem has been set in a village churchyard. Question 12. Where is the churchyard? Answer. The churchyard is in a village and in a place where the poet can see and think over the activities of the rustics. It is actually in the stock poses where Gray wrote the poem. Question 13. What profession of the dead villagers does the speaker describe? Answer. The speaker describes the villagers as farmers. Question 14. What is the rhyme scheme of the poem? Answer. The rhyme scheme of the poem is AB, AB. Question 15. What is the regular meter used in the elegy? Answer. The regular meter used in the elegy is iambic pentameter. Question 16. What are the stanzas in elegy called? Answer. The stanzas in elegy are called heroic quatrains. Question 17. What is the curfew? Answer. A curfew generally means an official restriction on people's movement after a specific time. It also means the bell rang at 8 p.m. as a reminder to extinguish the fire of the fireplace in each house as a safety measure during the reign of William the Conqueror. In this poem, the curfew means the bell rang at churches after sunset. Question 18. At what time of the day does Gray elegy begin? Answer. The elegy begins at twilight. Question 19. What are the images the poet has used to set a gloomy atmosphere suitable for the opening of an elegy? Answer. The poet has used the images of the church bell, parting day, lowing herd, tired plowmen, a glimmering landscape, solemn stillness, and hooting of an owl to create a gloomy atmosphere suitable for the opening of the elegy. Question 20. What does nail symbolize? Answer. Nail symbolizes death. Question 21. Name the figure of speech in weary way. Answer. The figure in it is transfer epithet. The adjective weary has been transferred from the plowman to the way. Though the epithet has been used before the way, it means that the working villagers are weary at the end of the day. The way is not weary. Question 22. Find out the figure of speech in the plowman homeward plods his weary way. Answer. There are three cases of alliteration: P has been repeated at the beginning of plowman and plots. W has been repeated at the beginning of oily and way, and H has been repeated at the beginning of homeward and his. Question 23. Name the figure of speech in the line and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Answer. Here is a case of yogma. The words darkness and me have one verb leaves, though only darkness is appropriate to it. Question 24. Name the figure of speech in twinklings and twittering. Answer. There is onomatopoeia in the use of each of these words, since the sounds of these words suggest their meanings. Question 25. What purpose does the reference to the owl's secret bower on the ivy-mantled tower serve? Answer. The reference to the owl's secret bower on the ivy-mantled tower impart to the setting a sense of antiquity. It also suggests that this neighborhood is a solitary place for decades. Question 26. What figure of speech do you think is in and drowsy twinkling lull the distant fields? Answer. Here the fields suggest cattle and sheep. Field is metonymy because a container field is used for the things cattle and sheep. Question 27. What is the effect of the phrases wrecked dam, the turf is many a mouldering heap, and narrow cell, which have been used to describe the graves of the dead villagers? Answer. The phrases create existence and painful hardship, sense of antiquity, neglected existence, and painful hardship. Question 28. What figure of speech do you find in narrow cell? Answer. It is an innuendo because the unpleasant word grave has been avoided and narrow cell has been used to mean it obliquely. Question 29. What does mouldering heap mean in elegy? Answering. In elegy, mouldering heap means the heap of soil on top of a grave. Question 30. What are the sounds Gray has used to indicate mourning? Answer. Gray has used several sounds to indicate the mourning in rural area. The breezy call, twittering swallow, cock's shrill, clarion, and the echoing horn. Question 31. What does the poet mean by lowly bed? Answer. The phrase means grave. Question 32. What figure of speech do you find in lowly bed? Answer. It is an innuendo because the lowly bed has been used to avoid the unpleasant word grave. Question 33. What elegiac purpose does the line "No children run to lips their sire's return" serve? Answer. The line creates the genuine pathos necessary for an elegy. Question 34. What impression of the villager's life do you get from the line "How bowed the woods beneath their starry stroke"? Answer. The villagers earned their livelihood by hard labor in the field. Question 35. Name the figure of speech in the phrase "starry stroke." Answer. The figure in the phrase is called alliteration, since has been repeated twice. Question 36. What figure of speech is in their furrow aft the stubborn glaive has broke? Answer. There is hyperbaton in the line. The natural syntax, their furrow of the stubborn glaive has broke, should have been their furrow aft has broke the stubborn glaive. So there is a hyperbaton or inversion. There is also a case of metonymy because furrow has been used to suggest plow. Question 37. Name the figures of speech in let not ambition mock their useful toil. Answer. The line contains personification and synecdoche. Ambition has been treated as a living being. Ambition is also a case of synecdoche because abstract has been used for the concrete, as the word ambition refers to all ambitious people. Question 38. What figure of speech do you find in the line, nor grandeur here with disdainful smile? Answer. Grandeur has been personified. The word grandeur is also a case of synecdoche because it is an abstraction for concrete. It refers to all rich people. Question 39. Why does the poet say that annals of the poet is short and simple? Answer. The poet describes the annals of the poor as short and simple because these neglected villagers lived short lives because of hard labor and malnutrition and were forgotten soon after their deaths. Question 40. What is the poetic name of all that repeated in the line, and all that beauty, all that wealth ever gave? Answer. It is called anaphora. Question 41. Name the figure of speech in the line, the boast of heraldry, the pomp of power. Answer. In this line, heraldry and power are treated as living beings. These are personifications. There is also an example of alliteration in pomp of power, since P has been repeated twice at the beginning of two stressed syllables. Question 42. What figure of speech do you find in the line, and all that beauty, all that wealth ever gave? Answer. In this line, all that has been repeated twice. This type of repetition is called anaphora. Question 43. Name the figure of speech in inevitable hour. Answer. The phrase inevitable hour is a roundabout way of expression for death. It is called circumlocution or periphrasis. It is also a case of euphemism, since inevitable hour has been used to avoid the unpleasant word death. Thank you, viewers, for watching.